Sweetie?
Emiko Hayashi's here in the house. Okay, it's not 11 yet, Emiko. I'm waiting a minute. Hello, Emiko. We're just waiting for somebody to. I'm going to sign. I'm going to start in a little while. Marco, you there?
Yes, he's there.
Yeah, I'm mute.
Should I begin this workshop? Or should I wait another 5 minutes?
I'm not talking.
You can play for another minute and then start.
Okay, cool.
Neil, mute yourself, please.
Okay, I see a few people out there. Who's out there? Nell Journey. I don't know you, but I'm glad you're here.
How you doing? I was recommended by John Papernak.
Very nice. He's one of my better students.
Ah, okay. All right. How you doing?
I'm glad you showed up. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyway, there's other people out there on Facebook and YouTube, I'm sure, as it's streaming everywhere now for this workshop. And people will be jumping in, I'm sure, in and out over the next hour. So what I wanted to really discuss today was ways to construct a solo using several different elements in the music. And you can start at a very simple place by just going 1, 2, 1. I'm sorry. Do me a favor. Can you mute yourself if you don't have a question? If you have a question for me, you can unmute, of course, to talk. So here's another one coming in. Cool. Welcome, John DePinto.
Hey, Mark.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good. So what I wanted to really start with was, elements. When I teach jazz improvisation skills and jazz studies in everywhere that I teach, in every school and every student that I have, basically, I try to enlarge the language of the student by feeding them different elements that you can play. Of course, teaching some of the basic rules of what you can use on what chord, how you can use this on one chord or that on another chord. But, scales, chord outlines, things like that. For instance, Dorian mode for the minor chords, Mixolydian for major chords, or eventually half whole diminished for not major chords, for dominant chords, Mixolydian for dominant chords, eventually half whole for dominant and altered scale or melodic minor up a half step, more complicated elements. So as I continue with students along the way, it gets more and more.
Put my headphones on.
Me? I need headphones?
No.
Sorry. If everybody mutes themselves, and if they're not speaking except for myself, then of course we will be able to hear each other better, and you'll have less feedback or problems because I have some speakers going so I can hear you. Anyway, so an element in music could be, I consider that like an element is equivalent to a motif. It's equivalent to a motif. And that could be anything, in Beethoven's motifs were, the Beethoven 5, da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 da, there's a million types of ideas that you can come up with in music. I mean, it's limitless, it's infinite, the possibilities of what you want to create as far as an idea, a motif. Now, when I teach in elements, those elements are basically motifs. So you can take the simplest thing like, I like to box. So you could think of the old 1-2, like I work with numbers a lot in improvisation, particularly with the chord outlines. People learn 1-3-5-7, 3-5-7-9, 5-7-9-11, and 7-9-11-13 in every key, in major and minor, for instance, in chord outlines. But when I say 1-2, 1-2, I mean a simple element like, it's 1-2, 1-2. It's a very simple thing, or a triad. Those are elements of music, basically. Now you can take an element like that and drill it through an entire piece or an entire section of the piece. Like if I take 1-2, 1-2 and play it with something like Autumn Leaves or All the Things You Are, one of the standards, like if I go, there are different entry points on say the Dorian scale for C minor to F7. There are different entry points that you can enter a 1-2 at. A 1-2, 1-2 is a major second, right? So we're really talking about intervallically related shapes, okay? Today, this is really what I want to talk about. Intervallically related shapes. Now look, I'm a believer in learning jazz improvisation from the old school. I really am. Transcribing from records, transcribing anyone's solo, including myself, and stealing lines from the person is how we all learned, okay, in the old days. There was no YouTube, there was no iTunes, there was no tempo or anything to slow things down so you could transcribe easily. We were dropping the needle in the old days on the turntable. So this, it's a lot easier to transcribe today, but that's really old school. Learn all the solos of, any bird. Learn all the bird solos, or learn one or two really well, and boy, will you get mileage out of that. Tremendous mileage. But what I realized is there was a way to teach that through a methodology of number groups and, of course, musicality. And the main part of it is applying all these type of number groups and shapes to a song, any given tune, and applying it into performance. So the most important thing really is the performance aspect of it, dropping it into performance, being able to use it inside of your performance, applying it basically to the music itself, which is, with your iReal, in these conditions, nobody's playing together. So with your iReal Pro or whatever you practice with, or even a metronome, put it into application. Now, if you take 1 2 1 2 on a C Dorian scale, there are only several places that you can enter that, where there are major seconds inside of the scale that you could do that cleanly. And there's only a couple of points. It's on C, on E flat. You can't do it on D because that's a half step. It's a different shape. You understand? You can't change the shape. You know, the shape is the shape. So what we're talking about is taking individual shapes or motives, in this case, or elements. They're all the same. I consider them the same. And entering them into a scale. On 1, on 3, on 4, on 5, and on 7. But really, the easy way is to just do it up by, up on 1, 3, 4, and 7, or on 1, 4, and 7 gives you a fourths effect. So an element like that, to learn it in every key, you need to practice it in every key, obviously, to be able to apply it, okay? Now, if you did, the way to do that would just do cycle of fifths with that, Up by fourths, up by fourths all the way, or up a fourth and down a fifth, So you need to drill things that way to get them down in every key. That's part of the technical. Inside of your practice, you have to split your practice up very carefully when you practice. And it has to be very efficient. And the way to be efficient is to do 50% of your practicing perfectly, of course, slowly and perfectly, and getting it down perfectly legato and gorgeous. Make it sound like, Yitzhak Perlman playing the violin. I mean, you have to make it sing. So practicing different elements in all keys is part of the technical aspect of your practicing. You should split your practicing into 50% technical, 50% application with the iReal Pro, I guess, in this particular setting that we're in, or even when we're not. I use the iReal Pro to drive me because it creates bass and drums for me, and I can play endless choruses in any key at any tempo. So it forces tempo and form. I'm not a believer in playing with machines that much. I don't like it any more than anyone else. I'd rather play with people all the time, but unfortunately I don't live with a bass player and a drummer where I can do that. So I use the iReal Pro, and it drives tempo and form for me at any tempo, which really helps me get better, So that's the entry points on 1 2 1 2, on 1, on 3, on 4, on 7, 5, and 7. Okay, now I can play that through to help that drive me with lines, okay, on a tune. Okay, I can't turn the iReal Pro on because you won't hear it very well, but I'll play solo, just a couple, like even one chorus on Autumn Leaves, and just play 1 2 1 2 all the time. Now, the reason I can do it on a tune like that is because there are entry points on the dominant chord, and there are entry points on the major chords too, as well for that. If you take a major scale, if you take a Ionian major scale, a C major scale, the entry points are on 1, on 2. It could be really on anywhere because it's whole steps all the way up except for between B and C and E and F. But you could do it on 1, on 4, on 5. It's good to pick like just a few of the entry points. You understand, to simplify your approach. 1, 4, and 5, say, major. Or just 1 and 5. So if I'm going through Autumn Leaves, and I do it with substitutions, on the B flat major and E flat major, I can show you those changes by share screen. And those changes are there. You see them? Right. So I'm using here, if you look at my cursor, B flat, B minor to E, B flat to E flat in place of B flat major and E flat major. Just because, for drill's sake, I like to add a couple of 2/5s in there. You get extra 2/5s to work on. You know, are you guys clear with this? This is kind of for intermediate and advanced players. I don't really know your levels too well, but I mean, it's really for intermediate and advanced. So I'll continue. And then on A minor 7 flat 5, for instance, here, if I was using Locrian as my vehicle, as my vehicle for negotiation on the A half diminished chord, who can tell me where the entry points are of 1 2 1 2? Just, you know, unmute yourself and speak if you can. Anybody at all? Yeah,
Okay, did you say on the A minor,
right, on the A half diminished.
you can start on A, well, no, am I wrong? No, that's not right. You can start on, B flat, right?
Yes, that's correct.
C,
You can't start on A because it's a half step. A Locrian is a B flat major scale, right?
yeah, which one? The Locrian's the weird one.
Well, it's the seventh mode in a major key. So it carries a B flat major key signature, and it starts on the 7th degree on A. So it's A, B flat, C. It's a B flat major scale starting on A. Right? So that means that if that's the case, then the entry points are the same as a B flat major chord, as a B flat major scale. Anything on it as a B flat major scale. So the entry points would be where? B flat.
C, D, no.
No, D to E flat is a half step.
B flat, C, F, and G. Is that right?
Yeah, B flat, C, E flat, F.
E flat.
Yeah. So you pick a few of those, you know, and I like to separate them by fourths more. It's better if you separate them by fourths, those shapes, you know. A half diminished. Yeah, so if I was to go through the whole, now on a dominant chord, you can do that in an altered fashion by using it on 1 and tritone on an F7. You understand? You can use the 1 2 on it's good to use it on the root and the tritone. It works incredibly. Even though there are other entry points on a Mixolydian scale of F7, there are other entry points because it's going to be the same as B flat major. Yeah. Is there any questions from anyone? I know that people on YouTube and Facebook cannot respond that way with questions, but you people here on Zoom can. But anyway, nevertheless, this is what it sounds like, you know? See what I'm saying? So you can use that to help you create lines, okay? Now, another element would be major scales, just the major scales that go with those chord changes that are on the screen. Like, you know, B flat major scale for the first 2 measures, B Dorian and E Mixolydian, which is an A major scale, right? B flat Dorian and E flat Mixolydian, which is an A flat major scale. A minor 7 flat 5 is going to carry the B flat major scale for the moment. There are other options as you get deeper into improvisation studies. And on the D7, you could use either stay with the B flat major scale for the A minor 7 flat 5, or you can change to an altered scale, a half full scale, of course, for the dominant. And then on G minor 6, you'll use an F major scale, which is G Dorian. And on the G7, you can use G half whole or G altered scale if you know those scales. So the point with major scales mixed with 1 2 1 2. If I take the 1 2 1 2 and I mix it with the major scale element, if I take the major scale element and go switch, F major, C, B flat, A flat, B flat major scale. So I'm just playing the major scales really, which is the modes. You know, low mode, Mixolydian mode, and I have Locrian mode on this set of changes on the A half. That's just 3 modes, you know. Now I can mix that scale thing with the 1 2 1 2. And then it begins to evolve. Your lines begin to take shape that way. I could go. Scales, scale. You understand? So I'm now mixing a major scale with 1 2 1 2. Now, what do you think about that? Any questions? Any comments about the concept of taking major scales and a shape? In this case, 1 2 1 2. Are there any questions for you guys? Anybody at all? No? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or unmute yourself. It's just.
Yeah. I have an idea of what you're saying. It's just I'm not at that advanced level where you're explaining. So I'm I guess beginning media. So I understand the major scales and as their applications and where you apply them, the 1 3 5 7 or 5 7 3 1, and the half diminished and where you find where you can apply that. I guess because I hear what you're playing. It's my thing is now I have to sort of like put the theory on paper because I hear it, but I don't know the intervals enough to know where they're at.
Okay,
Yeah.
Clearly, an important skill in music, in all of music, whether it's classical music, jazz, or rock and roll even. Well, I mean, in rock and roll, a lot of people get by with just their blues scale and their pentatonic, and they just rip with that forever.
Right.
And you can actually live by that in certain ways in rock and roll. But in jazz music, you have to learn things in jazz improvisation. It's very important that you learn things in multiple keys. You have to learn everything in multiple keys. So the first thing for you would be to, of course, make sure you have all your major scales in every key. And then if you're going to do something like what I'm showing you right now, you would have to learn 1 2 1 2 in every key.
Right.
It's not very difficult. I've taken about probably the simplest element I could possibly choose.
Yes.
Other than a triad, So it's just that variety can be created by mixing 2 themes together or 2 ideas together. In this case, I'm using major scales. Now, one thing that I didn't mention is the triplet is vital. You have to have the triplet in there. I didn't play a lot of triplets just now because I was demonstrating strictly this element. But in performance, I'm going to be playing scales that are be like. Using ya da 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 da. You're going to use triplets in there. So that immediately makes things sound like jazz right away. When you add a triplet to anything, it's like interesting. It's like the way we cook. You add a seasoning, like you add a seasoning to a meal or a salad or something. The triplet is the foundation rhythm of all of this music, of the jazz music. Without the triplet, it's really not happening. So you cannot without that feeling. You need that triplet feeling of dang, 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 dang. You need that feeling. So the triplet is probably the most important rhythm in jazz. I just you have to have it. When somebody's just playing straight eighth notes the whole time and never swings never turns it around with any triplets like that, it becomes very too strict, too straight, and it doesn't swing right. It doesn't always swing right. So you have to learn to mix major scales, triplets, and eighth notes through changes. Through the simplest set of changes, the 2-5-1 and B flat. The simplest thing. You have to learn to mix triplets and eighth notes, of course. But as we get into this motivic thing, okay, it gets very deep because you can shape lines using several ideas at a time. Okay? Now, if I change ideas from 1-2-1-2 to just playing, say, the triad of each chord. So C minor triad, F7, F triad, B minor triad, E triad, B flat triad, E flat triad. A half diminished triad without the G. D triad, G triad, G minor triad, G regular triad, dominant triad, major triad, right? And so forth through the whole tune. That's another element where you can go. Playing the triad notes. There's 3 notes in each triad, right? So I'm just grabbing 3 notes. Now what if I mix that with 1-2-1-2? You understand? So I'm taking 2 elements at a time just to create one section of my improvisation. That's just the A section of Autumn Leaves there. So this is kind of the message that I want to bring, to people, that it's a really interesting way to approach improvisation, to take several elements and mix them. Now, of course, I've been doing this for 45 years, so I have like countless elements that I work with, okay? You can use fourths, you can use fifths, you can use any one of the intervals to drive your lines, and you have the chromatic scale, and you have other types of scales, pentatonic scales, So when you take 2 elements and approach them like that, it creates some real magic, okay? And then of course, there are always your sort of go-to things that you play in a blues fashion, like you resolve to G minor, whatever, whatever, however you resolve to your, sometimes into a more of a rock and roll or a bluesy type of a feel. It's important that the bluesy feel the music better. So when you play F7, so some of that flavor in the music, because the music is really, jazz music is founded on the blues. It started with the blues. It's about the blues, you know. It's all about the blues. It's really about Leadbelly, you know, sitting on a porch in Mississippi, you know, drumming his guitar, playing the blues. That's really where jazz came from. That's the heritage of it, you know. Mahalia Jackson, James P. Johnson, Jerry Morton. That's where the heritage of the music comes from. But so it's important when you're soloing to try and imply some of that, of course. But these skills that I'm giving you are linear improvisation drills. They have nothing to do with the blues right now. We're not talking about the blues. If I was talking about the blues, there would be 4 different approaches that I might give you scale-wise or shape-wise to make you play a blues-inflected sentence, you know, to speak with a blues inflection. Okay, that's another issue. Okay, we're not talking about that right now. But I'm preaching concept, you know, I'm preaching concept of music right here, which is that the blues is really important and the feeling of that is important. So, you know, there's nothing right here that I'm going to do with blues much except for the G minor resolution, you know, with a blues sound, okay? But right now, if I was to take those, see, I've showed you how you can mix a couple of different elements. Now, a major scale can be played a lot of ways. If you take just a major scale approach to this, the major scale can obviously be played, you know, up and down your instrument, straight up and down. It could also be played in groups of 4. It can be played in 3 groups of 3. It can be played in groups of 2. I mean, you can play a major scale a lot of ways. You can play it in thirds, in sixths. There's a lot of ways to play it. You can play it in chord formations. Down the scale, all the modes. So these are different technicals that you could apply, but you could play that through a song, even that shape. You understand? You can use that as your shape. So the real, for me, the way I teach this is that the real path to jazz improvisation and strengthening your linear improvisation skills, which is really what a lot of people are trying to do. Pianists want their right hand to be their voice. Your right hand is your voice. If you're a saxophone, that's your voice. You know, it's a it's a one-handed instrument, so to speak. Two-handed instrument, but you know, your voice is the whole horn. For the piano, your voice is the whole horn, but the right hand is your lead voice when you're soloing linear. If you're soloing chordally, then both hands are your voice. You know, on guitar, same thing. It could be chordal or it can be linear. Saxophone doesn't play chords very well, or trumpet for instance, right? So you're not going to be playing a lot of chords. The closest the saxophone can come to a chord is a multiphonic, which is playing you get 2 tones at once. It's a strange thing. I don't know how they do it. But anyway, so that shape, you know. See, I'm just switching. B flat major. Now A major, A flat major, A low grid. So now I could approach that by a half step, each one of those. You understand? So all of these different elements have to be taken apart, okay? And that's the way I teach people. I feed them elements. So a good way that one of the things we're doing with the New York Jazz Workshop with my 2 combos on Monday nights, and New York Jazz Workshops, it's the school that's, supplying this.
Mark, I'm losing your sound.
One of the things that I do, you hear me now?
Yeah, it seems to go up and down.
The microphone is over here, so when I lean towards the computer, you lose me a little bit. Okay, I'll stay here.
Okay.
So, sorry about that. One of the things that has taken shape on my combo is normally the combo has there's 2 combos, and I highly encourage you to enroll in any of them because we work through these elements weekly. Every Monday night, I have 2 combos, and we used to play a lot together. We would work on elements, and then I would count off a tune, and everyone would play, and we would have a great time, jamming together. But now with this pandemic, that's changed, and what that's done is brought some good points too. Okay, the pandemic obviously is horrible on the social level and on the personal level. We're losing lives, but it's changed the way people are teaching everything. It could be anything, math, music, science. It's completely changed it all because everything's on the internet now. So instead of me counting tunes off, I'm feeding assignments to my students that they have to write out every week. And the assignments are things like write out 1, 2, 1, 2 on all the things you are, all the way through the tune, using these rules. And I give the specific rules that I've given you pretty much. Just find the entry points, enter on 1 and tritone on a dominant chord, and you can do the same thing with other shapes, okay? And it helps to drive fresh lines is what it does, This approach, it helps you get much more fresher lines that you won't repeat. You'll never be able to repeat what you play is the point with this approach. You won't be able to remember where you entered the 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 in any specific spot as you've gone through these changes, which creates sort of freshness. Now that combined with transcribing and learning solos of Charlie Parker and learning solos of Louis Armstrong, learning solos of McCoy Tyner and Herbie, and the combination of these drills that I present, and there are many, many more, obviously. I'm taking it slow. I'm trying to take it slow here so people understand what I'm saying. And then learning to apply these shapes, it helps you technically, mentally also, because you have to think ahead very much in order to execute this. You have to think ahead of the changes. You have to be ahead of the changes, always. So in application, some might say, how do you apply? The way I apply it is I usually take several elements at one time to create each line. So like I said, I might take 1, 2, 1, 2 for a second and switch to major scales. I might do this on major scale. To create a line, you understand? So I was playing, you understand? That's just one little line, you understand? But if you can learn to do that continuously in real time, then what happens is you end up quoting yourself. And when you quote yourself with rhythmic development and strong rhythmic development by taking different motives like this and playing them through changes, it makes you a better improviser all around. It just improves your skills. It sharpens your improv skills, I truly believe that. It could be, now let's take another element. I'm going to take a slightly more advanced element. Let's see, we got about 23 minutes left here. So actually, let's change the 1, 2, 1, 2 and make it 1, 2, 3, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 5 is something that kind of Coltrane made kind of famous, on giant steps. He played it a lot on his solo, he played this 1, 2, 3, 5 thing. That's a shape. That's one shape, Now 1, 2, 3, 5 can happen in major and it can happen in minor. Right? So the gentleman who told me before the 1, 2, 1, 2 entry points, tell me the 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5 entry points on a C Dorian scale. It can be a minor 1, 2, 3, 5 or a major 1, 2, 3, 5. Now the intervallic structure of the minor major 1, 2, 3, 5, the intervallic structure of that is major second from say C to D, major second from D to E, and then a minor third from E to G. Correct?
Yep.
Right. So now if you do that as a minor 1, 2, 3, 5, it's a major second from C to D, a minor second from D to E flat, and a major third from E flat to G.
Right.
So give me the entry points on C Dorian, minor or whether they be minor or major. The first one is on C, right? It's minor.
You could do a major starting on E flat.
Correct. Correct. Major on F, right?
Yes. And then minor on G.
Correct.
And then you can't do it. Well, you can't do it on A really.
Correct. You cannot do it on A.
And then on B flat, you could do a major.
Correct. So there's C, E flat, F, G, B flat, and C. Right? That creates a C pentatonic scale, C minor pentatonic. The bottom note of each one of those is a C minor pentatonic, just in case you're interested in. The notes you just chose. It's all C pentatonic. Now, if you use that as a basic, those are your several entry points. Grab any one you want whenever you can, right? And then you use it the same 1, 2, 3, 5 major on 1 and the tritone of the dominant chord. So if it's F7 on F and B major. Yeah, that works great too. And the reason it works is because the one on F, obviously that's F mixolydian. That's the same scale as C Dorian, okay? Right? The one on B has which notes on F? Of F7? Sharp 11, right? The B is the sharp 11.
The 5.
C sharp, sharp 5.
And
The
the
G sharp or E flat is the 7 of the F. And the F sharp or the G flat is your flat 9. So you have 4 of the altered notes, you have 3 out of the 4 altered notes in that shape. B, C sharp, and G, B, C sharp, and G flat are altered notes. Those are alterations. They're called alterations inside of a dominant chord, right? They resolve F7. So that has a nice sounding resolution to major or to minor. You can resolve to either. And if you did that shape on Autumn Leaves, using the corresponding minors and majors in the 1, 2, 3, 5, and go through the whole tune that way, it's quite an accomplishment. Is all I can say. It's quite an accomplishment, and it really enlarges your palette of language as you get more into it and can continue to do it, you know. Sorry. Also, you can do them backwards. It doesn't have to be forwards. It could be backwards. You can do it either way. So it's like a juggler. Think about a juggler with 2 balls. He's juggling 2 balls, right? Then he adds a 3rd ball, and he's juggling 3 balls. It's harder, right? Sometimes they add a fourth ball and they juggle four balls. Impossible, obviously. But you can go forwards or backwards. It creates great variety. Ah. Okay, so you see what I'm doing? Now I could mix that with, I could take one of those lines and turn it into 1, 2, 1, 2, you know, whatever. You see what I'm doing? You can mix them. So that if I have 1, 2, 3, 5 down, and I have 1, 2, 1, 2 down, and I have major scales down, then I can juggle 3 balls. Is that clear?
Yeah.
That's really what I'm talking about, okay? Now there's countless elements that you can use, okay? Now how to put them into, now one good thing to do when you're improvising in general is to think in 4-measure phrases, in even phrases, where you quote yourself, you go. Repeating the same rhythmic idea on the long form, you know, like a 4-measure idea, and then repeat that rhythmically with the right notes, of course, playing right notes. This is really speaking musically, okay? When you speak that way, you speak very musically. It's very clear. And people who don't know anything about music, who know less about music, or are just appreciators of music, they can relate to that. Oh, he repeated the same rhythm. It sounds, even a non-musician, a layman, can relate to that somehow. It somehow equates to like a funk beat or a disco beat that made people dance in the 80s. It came with that beat. People started dancing in the streets, okay? The repetitiveness of this. So repetition is huge in music, you know? Not repeating your ideas, we don't want to do that, but repeating rhythms is really huge inside of the musical spectrum of all music. Repeating rhythms, repeating motifs. They call it, in classical music, they call it theme and variations. You have a theme and you variate it, you know? You have an idea and you change it. So the idea is 1, 2, 3, 5. I'm changing it by going 5, 3, 2, 1. Is that clear? And these are the kinds of moves that create great, great improvisation, freshness in your improvisation. Freshness, and also being able to do those kinds of shapes in every key through a set of changes, is a challenge. It's like a sport, in a way. So, you practice technically that stuff, and then when you apply, you just play. You just play and express yourself by creating little sentences and statements inside of the music using the correct notes. These are the mystical things that many people are always trying to figure out. How do they do that? How does it sound? Why does it sound on a dominant chord? This. There's all kinds of motives. There's diminished shapes. There's the diminished modes. There's the major modes. There's the minor modes. There's the altered modes. There's all kinds of shapes inside of all these different scales that I'm talking about that can be created. If you get consistent with that and start out by doing one at a time through a set of changes, and then mix another one in there, a second one that you did one at a time already. In other words, you do one at a time, then you do another one at a time. You learn to mix those two together, okay? And of course, most of you have your own basic language that you already know, whether it be advanced or not. You have what you know already, okay, to mix into the, to put into the mix, so to speak. But I think that learning one element at a time through a set of changes is a great way to practice, because you can then mix several at a time, okay? Now, if I get into some more complicated elements, you can really go the long way. I have a thing called the 6/9. I'm going to leave the iReal Pro Changes up there for a second, and I'm going to show you something. I'll show you something with Pentatonic, okay? As an album. You know my pentatonic scales? You know my pentatonic scale?
What is it?
Minor pentatonic. It's all 1 minor 3 4 5 minor 7. 1 flat 3 4 5 flat 7 1. Right here up here, I have a formula for pentatonic. If you guys want to take a picture of this piece of music paper I've got up here, it'd probably be a good idea if you can, or just go, if you have a Macintosh computer, just go Command-Shift-3, and you will have a picture on your desktop of this. You should also do that on iReal Pro with a set of changes I gave you. Uh-oh, my battery's dying. Oh no. Okay, I'm back. So right here, what I've prescribed is a formula of how to use pentatonic, this minor pentatonic scale, inside of, and you can look up what a minor pentatonic scale is online, the notes of the pentatonic scale. I mean, I didn't write that out for intermediate students. I shouldn't have to write out what a minor pentatonic scale is, but if you don't know what it is, you can find it online. Here I've prescribed. Yes,
You can't see what's on your screen.
I'm sorry?
I can't see what's on your screen.
You don't see this piece of music paper here?
No, I see you.
Wait a second, let me reshare the screen. Let me reshare the screen share.
Yeah, it's there.
Got it. I see it now.
Two changes that have on iReal Pro, okay? The chord changes are on the top, and on the staff itself, I've written out some letters. And those letters are, each one of those letters on the staff, in parentheses, is a minor pentatonic scale. So it would be like D minor pentatonic, D minor pentatonic, C sharp minor pentatonic, C pentatonic, as you go through the measures. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I know my pentatonic scales in every key, and for this particular tune, I just need to know it in D, C sharp, C, F, A, E, B flat, then it's repeats, and everything's repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. C sharp. That's cool. Lost. Mark, we've lost you completely.
Can't hear.
Mark, can't hear you.
Can't hear.
I hope he didn't mute himself.
What's happening? Oh, that's his.
I guess his video's down. John, how you been doing?
Good. How?
Good.
No, I'm good. How are you, man?
Good. Yeah, well, while he comes back, basically, he hasn't come back yet.
No, I don't know what's going on, man.
And nothing much, just over here isolating.
You're in the East Village, right? Is that where you live?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, across the street from the river, but I don't go to the river.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Oh, so you're way
Yeah.
on the east side, man.
Yeah, I just go out maybe once a week. That's about it for a while. But I should be starting to come out again.
Yeah, well, the weather's getting warmer now, so I'm going to be going.
Yeah.
I try to
Yeah,
go outside a little bit every day, just
right.
to break up the monotony.
Yeah. Yep.
It's actually been cool, though. It's nice to have time to work on stuff,
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
without having to.
Yeah. There he goes. He's back.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
For Christ's sake, man. Jeez. What a pain in the ass. I had to totally log off and go back. So, okay, so where was I? Okay, so now share screen with this. Let me share screen. Let me share screen with this Autumn Leaves Pentatonic paper. Open it up first. Okay. Now I'm going to share screen. Come on. Doesn't like it. Ah, man, I'm having problems here. Can you hear me?
got it.
You can see it?
Yeah.
Okay, we're
Yes,
back.
there you
Okay.
go.
So you basically have to know the minor pentatonic and all those keys in order to execute this. Now, if I was to do that in a simple format, if I go to the one of each pentatonic, to the first note of each pentatonic, and change it on the chord changes accordingly, it's going to sound like this. Then C for the A half diminished. Now F for the pentatonic, because we said that gives you the altered sound. I mean, for the dominant, if you do it off of the minor third degree on the dominant, it gives you the altered notes. It gives you on a D7, F, A flat, B flat, C, E flat are the notes of the F pentatonic, right? That's the sharp 9, sharp 11, sharp 5, and the 7th, and the flat 9. It has many of the altered notes in it. Same way the 1, 2, 3, 5 had it. You understand some of the altered notes on the dominant, the 1, 2, 3, 5 on the tritone. So you know when I go from the beginning, then C sharp, and then C. Then C again on the minor third up from the A half diminished. You use the B flat major scale, so C minor is part of B flat major, and that makes sense. And then F for D7, and then A for G minor, and then B flat for G7. And then you're back to the top again, right? Now, if I go through the whole thing, now if I play that, you know, from the root of each pentatonic scale, obviously that doesn't sound. It's going to get old. It's going to get old really quickly if I keep doing that, you know, playing from the root of the one. But you can enter the scale from anywhere, which goes back to practicing scales, entering them from every point. What I said before about major scales, playing a C major scale, the length, but also you know, you're entering the scale from every point on the scale. If you can do that on pentatonic and enter it from anywhere, from any one of the notes of the pentatonic. So if you know all of the pentatonic scales, say for this particular set of chord changes, you can enter from anywhere. So you can enter those from anywhere and create any shapes you want using just the notes of those scales. And that's just an example of using pentatonic through the whole set of changes there. You understand? And then you could mix that pentatonic element with another element and juggle it. You understand? Suppose I mix the pentatonic with 1, 2, 1, 2. The very first element that we learned, right? 1, 2, 1, 2. You understand? You can mix them to create this myriad of linear activity, you know? So that's really the message I wanted to bring today. You know, I have about, 50 more elements I could teach you, at least. But we only have an hour for this workshop. But I highly encourage you to enroll in any one of the combos for the New York Jazz Workshop, really. But my combos are, I consider them to be very valuable simply because my students have grown big time. I've watched them over the years. I've been with this organization 8 years, and I've been teaching that combo on Monday night for that long. And you know, there's an more advanced combo and a slightly less advanced combo, but they're both great, and the students are great. And or you can of course reach out to me for private lessons if you're interested in that. You know, I do a lot online now, of course, and I have been for 10 years teaching online. And this system, this methodology I have is very effective. It's very effective, and it's effective for advanced people. You know, I was playing these drills in the room at Juilliard one day, and Steve Wilson and Ron Blake came in asking me, what is that you're playing? They wanted to know so badly, what is that? And I said, this is some drills, this chord outline drill I was doing is a drill that I use to get inside of chord changes. It helps me get in them. It helps me learn them, memorize them, play them better. And they said, wow, I gotta take a lesson with you, I gotta learn that. And then Ron said, you have to put it in a book. You have to put some of this stuff in a book. So I did that. I have a book called The Skills for the Poetic Language of Jazz Improvisation, and it's been pretty, you know, a pretty successful book, and I think it's helped a lot of people, you know. So I'm just trying to, you know, help people and make people grow in the music. But this type of approach to practicing, learning in the circle of fifths, different shapes, chord outlines, you can create your own elements, really. You know, if you're smart enough with it, you can be very, you know, just aggressively create those elements and learn to apply them into the music by playing it slowly at first, of course, with the iReal Pro or even without it, just with the metronome, you know. I just find that a great way for teaching this stuff to people. And truthfully, I believe it now. It took me many years to really realize that this methodology works. But the reason I developed this is because it kind of worked for me. It helped me learn how to negotiate chord changes better and become better at that. And then it's all about just memorizing tunes and memorizing different sets of chord changes and just memorizing lots of tunes, learning lots of tunes, you know. But if you can learn to apply several of these drills really well on one tune, and stay with one tune for a long time and learn to apply many of these different elements, if you can get a real high level on one tune, applying it to other tunes it becomes much easier on the backside, you know. So I truly believe that, and that combined, this type of approach, this type of methodology combines with transcribing. You have to transcribe. You have to transcribe, and I promise you, when you transcribe, you will hear many of these types of elements that I'm giving you. If you transcribe Coltrane, you're going to hear a lot of that. If you transcribe McCoy-Tyner, you're going to hear a lot of pentatonic and use of it in different ways, and a lot of it is the way I'm prescribing, you know. So, you know, that's it. Any questions from anybody, or comments on the system, or comments on what you're, you know, would like to do with it, or anything at all? I'm here, you know, we can go another few minutes.
Mark, is your book available through the workshop?
It's available through Google Play, and it's also available on my website. However, my website's being revamped because I was with this company Dynamod, and they went out of business. I've been with them about 15 years.
Yeah, no doubt.
Website. It might still be up. Let me see if it's still up. I'm not sure. I can check and see. If it is, it's available on that platform, on markshermanmusic.com. Oh yeah, it's still up. So if you go to the CD buy CD page, markshermanmusic.com.
Okay.
There's a CD purchase page. Oh, maybe it's not working. Oh, I don't have Adobe Flash. Okay, so I can visit it without Adobe though. thought you could go on with this without it. It's also available, yeah, it's available on Google Play with a download. It's cheaper too.
Okay.
You know, PDF, you know, it's like $17 or something. There's a way to get on this site without, oh, HTML version. There we go.
What, Mark, what's the name of the book?
It's called Skills for the Poetic Language of Jazz Improvisation.
Okay, great.
And here, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. If you go to Books and Lessons, it's right there. And all you have to do is push Buy CD. It says CD, but it's a book. You just push it and it gets mailed out to you right away.
Okay, great.
And Mark, and didn't you?
And there's a supplemental video that's there, that's here also.
On YouTube.
Yeah, there's a supplemental video for the book that
Right.
helps you with some of the skill sets, you know?
Right.
So yeah, that's where you can get it.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So I hope you guys enjoyed you know, some of these things I brought forth, and it's really conceptual stuff, and I have a lot of more elements, of course, but the concept of taking major scales and one element or one element at a time and practicing it through a specific set of changes, that's how you should practice. It's a great way to practice, okay? It's kind of teaching you how to practice today, you know,
Right.
in a way. And then there's all kinds of elements, and you can hear them on all your favorite recordings, you know. So, or you can buy my book. I've got a bunch in there, and if you want to take some lessons with me, I've got some that aren't in there also, that aren't in the book, a lot that aren't in the book. The book is for intermediate to advanced players, and it's also got a business section. It's half of the book. The book says Skills for the Poetic Language of Jazz Improvisation with school and career guidance. So it talks a lot about, there's half of the book is about the music business, which I felt was important because I don't want to teach jazz improvisation skills without telling you something about the business and how you might possibly get a gig, you know, doing it or make a living at it, as many are trying to do that. Okay, that's it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming, and you know, I hope everybody on YouTube and Facebook enjoyed it. My phone's going crazy right now with, it must be responses to this somehow. I got a lot of notifications. So, okay, and feel free to contact me. You can get me through the New York Jazz Workshop, or you can get me, I'm the easiest guy in the world to find online.
Okay.
All right, have a great
All right.
day.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Be very safe, man. Thank you.
All right. You too. All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
If I can leave this meeting properly. Stupid computer.